It started as just another late night on The Tonight Show, until a pizza delivery turned into the most heartbreaking moment in television history. The Tonight Show studio was alive with energy as Jimmy Fallon wrapped up another successful episode. The audience was still buzzing from the hilarious game segment, and Jimmy was feeling that familiar post-show high that came from a night when everything clicked perfectly. As the cameras stopped rolling and the crew began their usual cleanup routine, Jimmy realized he hadn't eaten dinner. "Hey guys," Jimmy called out to his production team, "anyone else hungry? I'm thinking pizza." It was nearly midnight, but Jimmy's schedule had been crazy all week, and he figured the crew deserved a late-night treat after another long day of filming. Someone quickly found a 24-hour pizza place that delivered to the studio, and within minutes, Jimmy had ordered enough food to feed the entire remaining crew. 30 minutes later, a knock echoed through the studio doors. Jimmy was still in his navy suit from the show, chatting with the Roots about tomorrow's musical guests when security let in the delivery driver. The young man who walked in carrying 3 large pizza boxes looked barely old enough to drive, let alone be working this late on a school night. He was 19 years old, though he looked younger, with messy brown hair and tired eyes that seemed to carry weight far beyond his years. His name tag read Alex, and his red delivery uniform was slightly wrinkled, as if he'd been working for hours. "Pizza delivery for Jimmy Fallon," Alex said quietly, his voice barely audible in the large studio space. Jimmy bounded over with his characteristic enthusiasm. "Alex, you're a lifesaver, man. Thank you so much for staying open this late." As Jimmy reached for his wallet, he noticed Alex wasn't moving. The young man was standing perfectly still, holding the pizza boxes, but his eyes were darting around the studio set, taking in the iconic Tonight Show backdrop, the guest chairs, the cameras. There was something in his expression that made Jimmy pause. "This is pretty cool, right?" Jimmy said with a warm smile following Alex's gaze. "First time seeing a TV studio?" Alex nodded slowly, then looked directly at Jimmy. "Mr. Fallon, can I tell you something?" Something in the young man's tone made Jimmy stop reaching for his wallet. The crew members who had gathered around waiting for their pizza also fell quiet, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. "Of course, buddy. What's on your mind?" Alex set the pizza boxes down on a nearby table, and Jimmy could see his hands were trembling slightly. When Alex looked up again, his eyes were filled with tears he was trying desperately to hold back. "This is my last delivery," Alex said, his voice cracking on the words. Jimmy's smile faltered slightly. "Your last delivery? Like, for the night?" Alex shook his head, tears now flowing freely down his young face. "My last delivery ever. I'm quitting tomorrow." The studio had gone completely quiet now. Even the Roots had stopped their conversation, everyone focused on this 19-year-old boy who was clearly carrying something too heavy for his young shoulders. Jimmy stepped closer, his entertainer's instincts kicking in, but more than that, his human instincts recognizing genuine pain when he saw it. "Alex, what's going on? Are you okay?" Alex wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve, trying to compose himself in front of all these people he didn't know, but the dam had broken and there was no going back. "I've been delivering pizza for 3 years, Alex began, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "Every night after school, weekends, holidays, I've driven to probably 1,000 houses, delivered probably 10,000 pizzas." Jimmy nodded encouragingly, his full attention focused on Alex. "I didn't do it for college money or to buy a car or anything like that," Alex continued. "I did it for my little brother Danny. He was 7 when I started this job, and he had acute lymphoblastic leukemia." The crew members exchanged glances, beginning to understand where this story was heading, and the weight of it settling over the studio like a heavy blanket. "Every dollar I made went to help my parents pay for his treatments. Every tip, every late-night run in the rain, every rude customer who yelled at me for being 5 minutes late. It was all for Danny, because the doctor said he had a chance, you know? They said if we could afford the experimental treatments, if we could keep up with all the medications, he could beat it. Jimmy's eyes filled with tears as he listened, his heart breaking for this young man who had shouldered such incredible responsibility at such a young age. 3 years, Alex continued, his voice steady now despite the tears. 3 years of delivering pizza every single night, watching other kids my age go to parties and dates and football games while I drove around with hot food in my car. And you know what? I never minded it. Not once. Because every time I came home with that money, Danny would smile at me like I was his hero. The studio was completely silent, except for the quiet sounds of crew members wiping their own eyes. Last Monday, Alex said, and his voice broke again, Danny lost his fight. He was 10 years old. Jimmy's hand went to his heart, and several crew members audibly gasped. The weight of loss of a child's death settled over everyone in that studio like a physical presence. And now, Alex continued through his tears, every time I pick up a pizza, every time I drive to someone's house, every time I knock on a door and hand over food, all I can think about is that I'm not doing it for Danny anymore. I'm not his hero anymore. I'm just a kid delivering pizza because I don't know what else to do with myself. Jimmy stepped forward and, without hesitation, pulled Alex into a tight embrace. The 19-year-old boy who had been carrying the weight of his family's medical crisis for 3 years finally let himself break down completely, sobbing into Jimmy's shoulder, while the host held him like a father, consoling his son. Alex, Jimmy whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, you weren't just delivering pizza, you were delivering hope. You were delivering love. You were delivering everything a big brother could give to someone who needed him. The crew had formed a loose circle around them, many crying themselves as they witnessed this raw moment of grief and love. Jimmy pulled back slightly to look Alex in the eyes. And you know what? You're still his hero. You always will be. But he's gone, Alex sobbed. He's gone, and I couldn't save him, and now I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to live, Jimmy said firmly, his own tears flowing freely now. You're supposed to live a beautiful life that honors everything he meant to you. You're supposed to remember that for 3 years, you were the most important person in that little boy's world. Jimmy turned to address his crew, wiping his eyes but speaking with clear determination. I need to ask you guys something, and I need you to be honest with me. Would you mind if we did something right now that's never been done on this show before? Questlove stepped forward immediately. Whatever you need, Jimmy, whatever this young man needs. Jimmy looked back at Alex, who was still trying to process what was happening. Alex, I want to do something to honor Danny right here, right now. Would that be okay with you? Alex nodded, unable to speak. Jimmy walked over to the main camera, the one that would normally broadcast the show to millions of viewers. He turned it on, the red recording light illuminating his tear-stained face. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy said, speaking directly into the camera, my name is Jimmy Fallon, and I'm here in our Tonight Show studio in the middle of the night with someone very special. This is Alex Santos, and he just delivered pizza to our crew after working the night shift. But Alex isn't just a delivery driver. For the past 3 years, he's been a hero. Jimmy gestured for Alex to join him in front of the camera. The young man approached slowly, clearly overwhelmed by what was happening. Alex has been working this job for 3 years, not for himself, but for his 10-year-old brother Danny, who was fighting leukemia. Every pizza Alex delivered, every dollar he earned, every late night he spent driving around this city, it was all an act of love for his little brother. Jimmy's voice cracked as he continued. Last Monday, Danny lost his fight, and tonight Alex was making his final delivery because he doesn't think he can continue doing a job that reminds him of the brother he loved so much. Jimmy turned to face Alex directly. But I want Danny to know something, wherever he is right now. I want him to know that his big brother didn't just deliver pizza for 3 years. He delivered hope to a family facing the impossible. He delivered love in its purest form. He delivered everything that matters when the world feels like it's falling apart. Jimmy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Alex, what was Danny's favorite food? Pizza, Alex said through his tears, the hint of a smile crossing his face for the first time. He loved pizza. Every Friday was pizza night, and he would always ask if I could bring home leftover slices from work. Jimmy nodded, understanding something that Alex didn't yet realize. You know what this means, don't you? Jimmy asked gently. You know what you've been doing for 3 years? Alex shook his head, confused. You've been bringing Danny's favorite food to families all over this city. Every pizza you delivered, every smile you put on someone's face when their dinner arrived hot and fresh. You were sharing Danny's joy with the world. The realization hit Alex like a wave, and fresh tears streamed down his face, but these were different tears. These carried recognition, understanding, perhaps even a small measure of peace. Jimmy, Alex whispered, I never thought of it like that. That's because you're humble, Jimmy replied. That's because you've been so focused on helping other people that you forgot to recognize what an extraordinary person you are. Jimmy looked back at the camera. Tonight we're starting the Danny Santos Memorial Scholarship Fund. Every penny raised will go to help other families facing childhood cancer, and it will be administered by Alex, because no one understands what these families need better than someone who has walked that path. Alex stared at Jimmy in shock. Mr. Fallon, I can't. I'm just a pizza delivery guy. No, Jimmy said firmly. You're a young man who spent 3 years sacrificing everything for someone you loved. You're exactly the person who should be helping other families find hope in the darkest moments of their lives. Jimmy turned to the Roots, who had been watching this entire exchange with tears in their eyes. Questlove, do you think you guys could play something soft? Something that feels like love? As the Roots began to play a gentle improvised melody, Jimmy addressed the camera one final time. If you're watching this, if you believe in love, if you believe in the power of one person to change the world, please help us honor Danny Santos and support other families facing what the Santos family has faced. But more than that, please remember Alex's story. Remember that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they drive beat-up cars with pizza delivery signs on top, working through the night to save someone they love. Jimmy put his arm around Alex's shoulders. And Alex, I want you to remember something. Every pizza you delivered wasn't just food. It was love, made tangible, shared with people who needed it. You weren't just working a job. You were ministering to people, one delivery at a time. As the music continued to play softly in the background, something beautiful began to happen. The crew members who had gathered around began sharing their own stories of loss, of family struggles, of times when strangers had helped them through dark moments. The studio transformed from a place of entertainment into a sanctuary of human connection. Alex listened to these stories with wonder, beginning to understand that his experience, while unique in its details, was part of a larger human story of love and loss, and the ways we carry each other through impossible times. Mr. Fallon, Alex said after the music faded, I don't know how to thank you for this. Jimmy smiled, that genuine warmth that had made him beloved by millions of viewers. You don't thank me, Alex? You honor Danny by living a life that makes his sacrifice meaningful. You go to college if that's what you want to do. You help other families if that's your calling. You find love, create joy, make the world a little bit brighter, because that's what Danny would want for you. Jimmy paused, then continued with a grin. And maybe, just maybe, you keep delivering pizza sometimes, because the world needs people who understand that food delivered with love tastes different than food delivered with indifference. Alex laughed through his tears, the first genuine laugh anyone in that studio had heard from him all night. "You know what, Mr. Fallon? I think I might do exactly that." 3 months later, Alex Santos stood on the Tonight Show stage as Jimmy's special guest, sharing the success of the Danny Santos Memorial Scholarship Fund, which had raised over $2 million for families facing childhood cancer. Alex had enrolled in college to study social work, but he still delivered pizza 2 nights a week, now understanding that his job had never really been about the pizza at all. The night of his appearance, Alex wore a small pin on his jacket, a tiny pizza slice with angel wings, a symbol he had created to honor Danny's memory and remind himself that love delivered with purpose can change the world, one house at a time. But perhaps the most touching moment came at the end of the show, when Jimmy presented Alex with a framed photo. It showed Danny, age 7, grinning widely while holding a slice of pizza, with a note written in a child's handwriting. "Alex is the best big brother in the whole world." "He knew," Jimmy said simply. "He always knew what you were doing for him, and now the whole world knows too." As the show ended and the audience gave Alex a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes, something profound had been accomplished. A young man's grief had been transformed into purpose. A little boy's memory had been honored, and a studio full of people had been reminded that the most important work we do isn't always the work that gets recognized or celebrated. Sometimes it's the work we do in the middle of the night, driving through empty streets, carrying hope from one doorstep to another, believing that our small acts of love can somehow make the darkness a little less dark. Alex Santos never stopped delivering pizza entirely. Even after graduating college, even after becoming a successful advocate for families facing childhood illness, he would still put on that red uniform once a week and drive around the city delivering food and hope to anyone who needed it. Because he had learned something that night in Jimmy Fallon's studio, something that Danny had been trying to teach him all along, that love delivered with purpose never really ends. It just finds new addresses, new faces, new hearts that need to be reminded that someone cares enough to show up when they call. And sometimes, just sometimes, it changes the world one delivery at a time,